Joining us now, somebody who has experienced this. They're a little ahead of the curve with Brexit. He was the leading spokesperson, member of the European Parliament for southeast of England, campaign leader for the Brexit movement, and a friend of mine who I admire greatly, Nigel Farage, is with us. How are you, sir?
I'm good, and it's like deja vu. Everything that's happening now in America, the way the media are portraying, race hate crimes and yet don't portray crimes against Trump supporters, it reminds me of Brexit a few months ago.
It really does. How bad did it get, and did it start to get better? Did they finally accept the results? I know that Great Britain now is having some court difficulties moving forward with Brexit.
Of those that voted Remain to stay in the European Union, I did a phone-in show the other day, just like you're doing now, and I said, I want to hear from you. If you are a Remain voter, ring me. If you accept the result or don't accept the result, 70% of people who voted Remain say, do you know what? We live in a democracy and we abide by the result. But the real problem here is that some of the big businesses that want this globalist agenda will keep on playing. Some of the so-called liberal media will never give up, and, you get the odd rock star and a few students. Funny, isn't it? I watched all those rioters outside Trump Tower when I was there the other day. I bet you none of them actually bothered to vote. They were too busy smoking drugs,
I was there Saturday, and I got to tell you, there was a huge crowd, and it was getting cold when I got there.
Yeah, well, good. I mean, it's a shame it didn't rain, in my opinion. But,
come on, that's funny.
Look, the problem is this. The problem is that the liberal elite took charge of the West over 20 years ago. They have been completely in control, and they just are not waking up and smelling the coffee. They're not recognizing that what is done is done. We now, in Britain, there are legal challenges, there are various things going on, but believe me, Brexit's going to happen, and Trump is president, and I would say to every one of those people that's been out protesting, now I wonder, are they Americans, or are they the same protesters we had in London who've been shipped over? I'm not sure. But either way, you are a democratic country, and people need to accept the results. Donald J. Trump becomes president on Jan the 20th.
He does, and he will. Nigel, on a very serious note, I've called this the election of the forgotten man. And for the last year on this program, and I've sworn I'm not going to give the statistics out anymore because my audience knows them by heart, the American people have suffered greatly under these liberal leftist, alt-leftist policies of Obama. Obama has embraced the most radical elements like Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, MoveOn.org, etc., and they've embraced him and he's embraced them. And unfortunately, liberalism, leftism, globalism has not worked. And Americans, especially in the Rust Belt, were the victims of bad government policies that hurt them, took away their opportunities, and hurt their families. That's what this election was about. So to me, it's really about Donald Trump following up on the very things he promised in the election. If he does that, he will be a successful president.
No, he won't. He'll be a hero.
Yes, a hero. You're right.
He'd be an absolute hero. I had the privilege, Sean, as you know, of spending a bit of time with Donald Trump a couple of days ago. I met a very thoughtful, a very reflective man, and we talked about things. And I tell you something, his absolute sincerity in his heart that he wants to bring back jobs, he wants to make the lives of decent, ordinary people better, I did not doubt for a moment. I think his economic plans, the ideas he's working on, I think in a year's time, there'll be a lot of people who have been very critical of Trump who are going to say, do you know what? We're surprised. This man gets it. And let's remember, he's not a career politician. He's not part of that Washington swamp. He's an individual. He's a businessman. He's a personality. He's a character. He cares. And what I got from my meeting the other day is he's a proper human being. And do you know what? I'm actually, despite all the negative stories that we're hearing about protests and everything else, I'm actually very, very optimistic.
I'm extremely optimistic. I'll tell you why. I mean, simple things will have a profound impact on the economy. I mean, you see this, for example, in Ireland, because they have one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the industrialized world, and I know the rest of Europe has been pretty angry at Ireland, but Ireland has attracted a lot of business by having those low rates, by dropping the corporate tax rate. Some people don't understand. Corporations don't pay taxes. They pass the cost on to consumers. Secondly, if multinational corporations are incentivized at a low rate of 10% to bring back trillions, it'll be like a shot of adrenaline through our entire economic system, as will eliminating Obamacare and the push towards energy independence. That combination is just a prescription for great success.
I think that what Trump said, and because America has got the most ridiculous corporate tax rates in the world now, there's something like $2 trillion sitting in the Cayman Islands, sitting offshore, and I think if Trump does a deal with these companies on corporation tax and says, right guys, we are now going to come to a deal, charge you a sensible rate for corporation tax, but in return, I want you to invest in research and technology, I want you to guarantee jobs for American workers. I tell you what, that's the biggest economic win-win ever. I think what he's doing on that is absolutely inspired.
I think, it's just a formula for success. What do you think the impact is going to be on Great Britain when Brexit is fully enacted? What does it mean?
Well, look, I am British, but I spent much of my working life working for American companies. I've spent 35 years spending a lot of time in your country. I am all for the UK-US relationship being as close as it can be. Come on, guys, we're basically cousins. That's how I see it. Now, Obama resented the United Kingdom. He was against us. His first gesture as president
Winston
was to
Churchill.
remove the bust of Winston Churchill from that Oval Office. And I, maybe a bit cheekily, but I did ask the president-elect, when I was with him, I said, would you, as a sign of friendship with the UK and the whole English-speaking world, put that bust back in the Oval Office? And you know what? His eyes lit up. He got it. He saw it. I want us, Sean, to have a close trade relationship. I want us to work together militarily, but no more Libyas, please. No more Libyas. And this is something that Trump gets. I'm very optimistic, and I tell you what, maybe slightly selfishly, a Trump administration that makes positive noises about the United Kingdom helps us, gives us a really strong hand in our renegotiation with the European Union.
You have, look, that relationship never ever should have deteriorated the way it did. And by the way, I'd love to see that bust back in the Oval Office, as you would. And similarly, I would argue, Nigel, that what has happened with our relationship with Israel is tantamount to a foreign policy disaster. And now that will be repaired as well, I believe.
Well, Trump will put that right. Trump will have no more Libyas. And Trump, I think, intelligently, is not saying that Putin's a great guy, but is saying, can we please stop provoking him? And look at the Ukraine. We had NATO and the European Union saying to the Ukraine, come and join us. Directly putting a threat on Russia's border, as the Russians saw it. And, if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when you get a reaction. And I think the Trump idea of flying to Moscow, meeting Putin, talking, and I'm going to bring it back to Churchill, because Churchill said many years ago, he said, jaw is better than war. And you know something? I think the world is a much safer place with President Trump than it would have been with President Clinton.
Nigel, blood, toil, sweat, and tears. Pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm trying my best, Nigel. If I can't make you laugh,
Listen, it wasn't a bad shot. I give
toil, sweat, and tears. Yeah, but listen, there was no... by the way, it is interesting. There is a similarity. I mean, he was known for having a little drink or two, Winston Churchill. He was known for his cigars, and he was known for his salty language. Am I correct?
You are absolutely right. And where I'm speaking to you from,
and he saved the free world at the time, but no minor detail.
No, where I'm speaking to you from right now is 2 miles away from Chartwell, where Churchill lived. And I've grown up studying Churchill the man, Churchill the politician, Churchill the warrior. And I tell you what, anybody out there who's not read a couple of books on Winston Churchill, you've missed something. This was the greatest guy, I think, that ever lived, and important to remember, his mother was an American.
It's also important to remember one of the more damning moments in history, biggest mistakes. Here he goes out in the Battle of Britain every day while Britain is being bombed to show confidence and bring confidence to the people, risking his own life. And then you guys throw him out after he wins the war. What was that all about?
I know. That was absolutely bizarre.
Bizarre.
I think basically they thought he was a great wartime leader, but maybe not a great peacetime leader. But either way, he's a great man. He loved Britain. He loved America.
He did.
And you know something?
The guest that would never leave.
In the last 100 years, we between us have shared triumphs and tragedies. But if it wasn't for the British-American relationship, we would not have beaten the scourge of Nazism. We would not.
Fascism.
There's no way we could have stopped these terrible things. And I'm excited about having a president that recognises that understands that. We've got a very strong, positive future together.
Well said. Let's play a little Winston Churchill for you as we close out. Nigel, thank you.
Policy. I will say it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might, and with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word.
Victory. Yes.
Victory at all costs.
All right, we got Nigel, God bless you, my friend. Very historic.